want to balance a budget. We want to have a balanced budget within a reasonably short period of time, meaning maybe by next year or the year after, but maybe even sooner than that.
Sounds good. Sign me up for that. Is it possible? I don't know. I bet you Eli has a good idea. Joining me now, Congressman Eli Crane, good one from the state of Arizona, former Navy SEAL. Okay, Congressman, Trump says he wants a balanced budget. We hear every day about, cuts here and cuts there and Doge this and Doge that. Is a balanced budget possible?
Well, Jesse, I'm not going to hold my breath, but based on some of the folks that I work with up here in Congress, but I do know that the president has always been an outside-the-box thinker, and I'm very impressed with his first 30 days, and I'm especially impressed with this Doge group that has been exposing to the American people what many of us have known for a long time. I don't think even those of us that have been extremely skeptical of the federal government for a long time knew even the tip of the iceberg when they start going in and look at some of these agencies like USAID and others. And so, I think we're headed in the right direction, but I'm not going to hold my breath.
Let's talk about the budget that just went through. It was one that had the vocal backing of Donald Trump. He was all about it, and you voted for it. And what's in it? What do we like? What do we hate? I know there's all kinds of crap we hate all the time.
Yeah, well, Jesse, this, like many of the spending bills up in Washington, was a tough bill for many of us. Many of us felt like it didn't cut enough, and it absolutely didn't. But when you look at what the Republican conference came back from Miami with several months ago, the cuts were a laughable $300 billion over 10 years. So some of us were able to, negotiate that up to about $2 trillion as the floor over 10 years. But when you break that down on an annual basis, Jesse, that's a couple $100 billion annually when you have a, $2 trillion deficit, which is why I say it's not nearly enough, so, didn't love it. But, I think with the group that we have up here, that's honestly the best we can do. It came down to the very end. There were several holdouts at the end. There were caucuses saying that they weren't going to, vote for it earlier on in the week. So I'm actually surprised that it passed, to begin with.
All right, speaking of it passing, you're there and we're not. We hear all the time now about the reconciliation process. Now there's reconciliation. Well, what does that mean? Where do we go from here?
Well, the next event up here, Jesse, it's going to be the lapsing of the funding in a couple weeks. And so, I'm hearing there's probably going to be an attempt at a CR, same old business in Washington. And so that's where we go from here. And it's sad and it's disappointing, but, we still have the same people up here, Jesse. You still have the same group. You have the appropriators, the war hawks, the Californians, the New Yorkers. And it's just like most people don't seem to understand, in my opinion, where this thing is headed, and that we cannot keep doing this forever. So it's a frustrating place to be, but I do see signs of headed in the right direction not because of the Congress, which is pretty laughable and quite honestly a joke at most times, but because of the leadership of the president and how he thinks outside the box. And also how he puts pressure on the House of Representatives and the Senate to enact, his agenda.
I know you're frustrated, brother. I hear it in your friggin' voice. Can you help me understand why these people don't get it when it's math? It's not you and I having an argument about abortion or border security or something like that. It's math. Like the math says we can't keep doing this. Or, people can't afford groceries, right? They know that, right? I mean, they can do math.
Yeah. Well, it's tough, Jesse. It's like, I think one factor is it's so easy to spend other people's money, right? And if you come up here to DC and you start talking to people about, a couple $100 billion here, trillion here, I don't think it really resonates or registers with a lot of people. But I think some of them, Jesse, it's kind of like a game of economical music chairs where they hope that, this house of cards doesn't collapse while they're still up here and without a chair. And so, like I said, man, it continues to be a frustrating place to be. But one more thing I'd like to say about that, Jesse, is I think many politicians are able to get away with it, quite frankly, because their voters don't care. Their constituents don't care. And I think one of the reasons for that is because we've had it so good for so long that most people don't think the United States has to play by the rules of reality. And I don't think that they understand that this nation could collapse because of our arrogance and our foolishness.
Yeah, it's happened to many nations before. Tim Burchett, one of my favorites up there, he dropped this little bit of it yesterday.
Mr. Roman, are you aware that we are sending $40 million a week to the Taliban?
Yes, sir.
Can you name other instances of foreign aid going to terrorist organizations?
We have assisted al-Shabaab in Somalia. There's been instances of the Hamzi network in Sudan, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, Kataib al-Hezbollah, Hayat Tahrir al-Shams in Syria. Dozens of terror organizations have received indirect assistance from U.S. foreign aid.
Congressman, can you help me understand how that happens?
I think it's just, relatable to everything else that we see in Washington. I mentioned the words arrogant and foolish a couple seconds ago, Jesse. And to me, that's the exact same thing. I mean, it's just so mind-boggling that we would, fund one of our adversaries, but one of the biggest terrorist organizations in the world to the tune of, $40 million to $80 million a week. And when you talk to some politicians up here, they'll tell you, oh, well, that money's not really going to, the Taliban or other terrorist groups. It's going to NGOs, but they're foolish to think that, these terrorist organizations which run, these countries aren't getting a cut of that.
Yeah, of course. Let's change the subject, talk about something wonderful. Impeaching judges. What do you got going on?
Yeah, Jesse. So, we filed, articles of impeachment probably about a week ago. We were looking around. We saw that the Democrat play, because they don't control the executive branch, the House or the Senate, was going to be to use activist judges to try and stop the Trump administration. We've seen that the second part of their plan is to use activism, by going, blowing up town halls and banging on congressmen's, district offices. So that's, step two of their process to try and stop what the Trump administration is doing. But, Jesse, at the end of the day, you have activist judges that are trying to stop President Trump utilizing his Article 2 powers under the Constitution to make sure that our laws are faithfully executed. And when you look at just take USAID, for example, right? This is an organization I tried to defund by 50% last Congress, and it was actually Republicans who stopped me from doing it. But you take all these organizations, and as you finally get somebody like Elon Musk under the leadership of President Trump to start looking under the hood of these organizations, it is just a viper's nest up here. There's so much fraud, waste, abuse, and corruption. And many of these Democrats and these radical judges are trying to stop, the Secretary of the Treasury or Elon Musk from looking under the hood and look at organizations that they've been tasked to oversee and lead. Jesse, how could you possibly, oversee an organization where you can't even look at the data, you can't look at the payments that are going out? Why would a judge be trying to stop that? And so, many of us are trying to use our, Article 1 powers to try and stop these judges. We have the power to impeach. We have the authority to impeach. It is a heavy lift. But, Jesse, I've never seen a battle won when, guys on one side of, the fight are looking around at each other, hoping that somebody's going to do something. And so, Jesse, I don't care if, this gets resolved through an expedited hearing at the Supreme Court. I don't care if it's my articles of impeachment or Andrew Clyde's or, Mr. Ogles from Tennessee. At the end of the day, I refuse to sit by and just watch this happen and us not do anything about it.
Yeah, it's incredibly frustrating to watch these nutball judges just do the things they do. Congressman, as always, my brother, I appreciate you very much. Stay in the fight. I know you're frustrated. I get it. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.